This PowerPoint covers the different approaches used in health promotion. You will be using at least one of them in your health promotion campaign, probably more. There are a variety of different approaches used by health promoters, and they have to choose the right approach depending on the information they want to get across and the change that they want to make. So what are these approaches? You're going to find out about the aims of each approach, how they're used, what it hopes to achieve, and also you'll be expected to analyse the strengths and weaknesses. Some work better in some circumstances than others. They're not always effective, so what might stop them being effective? This PowerPoint just covers the aims and how the approach is used. In your lesson, you'll be expected to do some research and find out about the strengths and weaknesses. So, approaches to health promotion. The first one is the medical or preventative approach. Then we have one that covers quite a lot of health promotion campaigns, and that's behaviour change approach. Educational, so getting information across to people. Empowerment or client-centred. Try to change society, so making social changes in the environments that we live in and the social groups that we live in. And lastly, the fear approach, trying to frighten people into make change. So, medical or preventative. Health promotion campaigns that try to prevent ill health are aiming to keep us healthy as a population by stopping us getting disease, keeping us free from disease and disability caused by ill health. The correct term for ill health is really morbidity. You can use either of those terms in your coursework, but if you're going for a high grade, morbidity is a good term to use. It means ill health. And mortality is death. So medical measures try to keep us healthy by preventing disease and also preventing us from dying early. So that means keeping us alive and mortality rates high. So how do they do it? Well, the medical approach uses medical interventions, some of which you've probably had already. A number of medical interventions you'll have already had in your life, and some you'll have in the future. So things like immunisation against disease. You'll have had childhood immunisations when you were younger. So, for example, you probably all had the mumps, measles and rubella vaccination. That's a way of protecting us against disease and promoting good health. So that's part of the medical approach. But at various stages in your life, you're offered screening tests. A screening test is a test which will pick up a disease in its early stages, probably before you even know that you've got it. There are lots of screening tests that are around, some of which you will have heard of, some of which you will actually have experienced. So, for example, every time you visit the dentist and get a dental check to look for tooth decay, that's a form of a screening test, trying to find disease in its early stages to prevent it getting worse, though that actually you have to have the tooth extracted. But then there are other screening tests, things like breast cancer screening that older women have, cervical screening to look for cervical cancer, and usually in about your early 20s that starts and goes on throughout the rest of your adult life until you reach old age. At least you're recommended to have it, but not everybody has screening tests. We don't have to have them. The same with immunisation. It's not compulsory in the UK. It is in some parts of the world. You might want to think about that. Should we really be insisted that we have these things, or should it be down to individual's choice? And then another medical or preventative method is actually putting fluoride in the water. That prevents tooth decay. Some parts of the country have that fluoride in the water, some don't. Different areas have chosen to have it, some have chosen not to have it, and allow individuals to make a free choice about whether they choose fluoride, say for example in their toothpaste that they use. So what about behaviour change then? The aim of behaviour change is to try and change our attitudes towards our lifestyle so that actually we adopt a more healthy lifestyle. It's getting us to make changes in our lives, to do things like take more exercise, improve our diet, to not smoke, for example, to drink alcohol in safe, moderate levels so that we maintain our health. So this approach expects us to take an interest and to take more responsibility for our own health. So how effective do you think this approach will be with people who have that negative concept of health? Remember what that means? Well, I'm not ill, so I must be healthy. I've got no signs of illness, I must be healthy. I don't need to do anything about it. This approach might not work with them. So how do we do it? We do it by changing attitudes so that the behaviour of the target group changes. So we need to change those attitudes of the target group first by trying to persuade them and motivate them to change their behaviour. So we give them information that will persuade them to act differently, getting them to take an interest in their own health, to look at what their lifestyle is like and to look at where they need to make changes, and therefore encouraging individuals to take some responsibility for their own health. That approach is sometimes linked with others. Health promotion campaigners don't always use just one approach, they might use more than one approach in their campaign. So behaviour is sometimes used with education. So education is about knowledge and information, but also developing skills. It's no good telling people how they need to make changes in their life and what they need to do about it and why they need to do it if you actually don't enable them to make those changes because they're not skillful enough. So for instance, if you talk to people about how to have a healthy diet and that's what they need to do, but actually they don't know how to have a healthy diet, they don't know how to prepare healthy food, they don't know how to choose healthy food, they need some education to improve their knowledge and information. So therefore they can make up their own minds and making an informed choice. So how do we do it? You usually give quite a lot of information to a target group so that they can know and understand about the issues around that topic. And it's usually done either through group work with small groups of people or in the mass media in things like advertising campaigns on the television. And these campaigns allow people to share and explore their attitudes and feelings towards different health issues. They're sometimes enabled to develop skills to tackle those issues, and if you give them information, they can make an informed choice about what they're going to do. And this approach is often used when dealing with groups of people, in schools for instance, and it's an approach that you might use in your campaign along with perhaps behaviour change. Next we have empowerment or client-centred. Empowerment is a word that you'll come across a lot in health and social care, particularly when we get to the next unit. Empowerment, it has that word power in the middle of it. That means giving people the ability to control what's happening in their life, and it's called a client-centred approach. So this starts with the individual. These approaches help individuals to identify what it is they want to change in their life and actually helps and supports them to change it. They need to know what they need to change and want to change what they need to change. And along with identifying their own needs, then they have to have that knowledge and those knowledge and skills and the confidence to actually act on those. So they often need quite a lot of support to make that change. They perhaps work on a one-to-one basis with health trainers, or they do things like the Stoptober campaign, trying to support people to stop smoking, or the quick kits that you might have seen previously that were very popular a few years ago. People might join Weight Watchers. They've identified the need to lose weight, so they go along and they meet with a group of other people that actually support them and help them and encourage them to make those changes. but the client has identified they need to make that change. It's really come from them. So how do we do it? Through self-empowerment, to give the individual the ability to have greater control over their lives. So things like Weight Watchers helps people to choose more healthy foods that will enable them to lose weight, and helps them by monitoring them each week. They go along to a club and they'll talk with other people who encourage them and support them. There'll be a leader there that looks at what they're doing and how they're doing and will motivate them and encourage them to carry on. Things like the Quit Kit, which people can send away and order online, and there's lots of things in there that will motivate them. It also includes a little bit of behaviour change, but the individual's got to really want to give up smoking in order to send for that Quit Kit in the first place. It's not just thrust at them, they actually have to choose to go and order and get that Quit Kit. And there are lots of things in it that provide support. And along with the activities that are in the Quit Kit, you can get email messages and text messages sent to your phones on a regular interval, encouraging you and supporting you to keep going. The Walk Well campaign, that's a local one, aimed at, tends to be older people, perhaps in their 50s or 60s, getting them to join a local group to get regular exercise. And they meet together once a week in different parts of the area. There are different activities that go on, different times, different days each week. And they usually form a social group with the other people that go, same people that go regularly. And they will go with a trainer who will take them on a guided walk. And they walk for about an hour and have coffee afterwards. But these people have identified that they actually want to get more exercise in their life. And they're motivated to go and do it by joining this other group of people, and they're empowered then to take greater control over their lives. Societal or social change, this is one that really you can't use in your campaign because it's something that governments have to do. They make changes to enable people to make healthy choices and to make healthy behaviour acceptable. They change society rather than changing the behaviour of individuals, but through changing society, individuals change. So they change policies so that attitudes in society change. It makes healthy behaviour more acceptable, and sometimes it stigmatises that unacceptable behaviour to make people feel uncomfortable with it. So how do they do it? They do it by lobbying the government to make changes. Jamie Oliver's doing that at the moment. He's trying to get the government to put a tax on sugar so that everybody in society has to spend more money on food that's high in sugar to try and discourage us from eating it. The government in the past have put all those adverts and comments on cigarette packages, reminding people that smoking is dangerous. So they've made lots of changes to laws to support healthy living. Things like speed restrictions in different parts of town. They're a societal change. They make everybody slow down. It's not up to the individual to change their behaviour. You have to, because you can't avoid it, because there are speed bumps in the road and there are speed restrictions. And if you go over them, you get caught and you get penalised. Things like alcohol. It's really no longer socially acceptable to drink and drive. And that's been a societal change over many years, as governments have convinced us through advertising campaigns that this is unhealthy and unacceptable. And the last approach is fear. This approach aims to frighten people into changing their behaviour by giving us horrible, scary images and adverts on the television, for instance. And some of those pictures that you see on cigarette packets, people get frightened of this by the health messages that they see. So they shock people into changing behaviour. Road safety, driving adverts on the television, drink driving adverts around Christmas frighten us into behaving in a more healthy way. Jamie Oliver's telling us that type 2 diabetes from excess sugar costs the NHS around £9 billion a year, frightening us into make a change. But however, fear can sometimes backfire. If it's too frightening, people don't listen to the messages. So, that's the 6 approaches. You need to understand all of them and to be able to choose the best ones for your campaign. But you have to write about all of them in your coursework in detail.